So I've been feeling like I was in a little bit of a rut when it came to video games. Like everything that was coming out just looked really boring and lame, and games that I had been playing consistently were just getting tiresome, and I just didn't really know what to do. So I decided to go back and play a classic that had a big impact on me recently. During the summer months, there are these long stretches where no new titles are released, which has always seemed so strange since that seems like the time when the little kiddos are out of school and they can just sit in front of a screen while they sweat since their parents can't afford the AC, so their house is currently 82 degrees. Okay, maybe that's just my experience, but still. Summertime seems to be the time I dedicate an unhealthy amount of time to one game, whether it's a multiplayer game or just a single-player game where you really have to grind. And that's been true since I was a kid and I actually had summer vacations. This summer found me searching through my back catalogs and finding Super Meat Boy. Now, this game is important to me for a couple different reasons. I got this game for free through the Games for Gold system on Xbox. It was free in June of 2022, but I am also positive that I got it for free way earlier as well. And searching back through the Wikipedia entry, in June of 2016. Smooth move, Microsoft. So I played this game in 2016, but I just got shit-canned by it. I remember getting to the salt levels and thinking I am physically incapable of completing this game, and then never touching it again. It was my first introduction to that brand of games where one of the selling points is that it's just hard. Call them old school, call them the Dark Souls of platformers, call them whatever you want. They're just fucking hard. And the challenge is part of the draw for the game because people like the feeling of accomplishment that they get when they're able to complete the game, and because people like the inherent competitive element of proving that you are better than every other gamer because you played Dark Souls and it wasn't even hard, or you beat Cuphead and your eyes were closed the whole time, or you beat Hollow Knight with one hand tied behind your back. Super Meat Boy is one of those games, but in 2016 it kicked my ass. I gave up. Quit. I deleted it from my Xbox, and I said I would never play it again. Until 6 years in the future, apparently. Super Meat Boy is just a platformer. You play as Meat Boy, and you need to get to Bandage Girl as quickly as possible. At the end of every level, Dr. Fetus steals her away until the end of the game when you actually get to rescue her. Lots of obstacles and enemies will lie in your way to get to Bandage Girl, though, which is where the trouble truly lies. Super Meat Boy is primarily a fast game. I don't think I would call it super precise, and there were many times where I swear the jumps or timing or enemy placement pseudo-changed from run to run as I tried to beat some of the harder levels. It made me feel like everything was a little variable, but you could make up through it through raw speed. In the description of the character for Meat Boy, it just says that he is fast. If you hold the right trigger, everything goes into fast mode. You jump further and run faster and die quicker most of the time as well. It's a blend of some precision with the chaos added in and just the speed of the game that forms the core elements of the platforming in Super Meat Boy. The standout moment in this game is the replay at the end of your run, where you see all the attempts you had simultaneously and witness all of your failures in that one clip, and finally your success. That can be really fun as you see the same jump kill you 30 times before you finally bested and are able to move on. It's a VHS recording of your achievement right in front of you, and that's really nice. There are simple cutscenes to show the evil side of Dr. Fetus, but the gameplay is at the heart of everything here, with the jumping and running and wall jumping and diving and avoiding all sorts of ways to die as your primary focus. There are different sets of levels, or biomes I guess you could call them, with a boss battle at the end of each. The bosses are generally not too bad, and I struggled more with the other levels by far compared to the bosses. And then eventually you run out of levels, unless you want to complete the Dark World levels, which you can only do if you get an A+ on the original level, which means you complete it very quickly using the speed I talked about earlier. And there's the Bandage, which you can grab for an extra challenge and to unlock skins to play as, or you can find the Void Worlds, which are like 8-bit versions of the platforming levels for Super Meat Boy. But all that shit, it's just way too hard for me, so I'm never even going to come close to sniffing any of it. I got some A+ on some levels just by raw random luck, and I feel like it was nothing to do with anything that I actually did well. When I came back to the game after this long break, two things struck me. First was that I remembered this game being so unique. The soundtrack, the characters, the humor, the visuals. And when it came out in 2010, that was kind of true. The Xbox Live Arcade was still in its infancy, and there were only a few games that had really introduced young people and console gamers in general to indie games in any meaningful ways, and Super Meat Boy was one of them. Since then, I've played lots of other indie games with the same visual style and audio and even game mechanics. Celeste, Downwell, VVVVV, and the game I'm going to talk about later all fit into this genre in some ways. Second, it just wasn't as hard as I remembered it. Now, maybe my gaming skills have increased exponentially, or maybe I built this game into a behemoth that I could never slay, and that was not really the case. But I was able to get pretty much through all the first 3 worlds with little problem. I wasn't setting the world on fire, but completing levels and defeating the bosses is good enough for me. When I got to Hell, the game did get hard, and the frustration grew, and I did punch some stuff. I have this bad habit where I just punch my own leg when I get mad when I play video games, and then it just ends up hurting my leg. Pretty stupid. But I still was completing the challenging levels, and it was sort of fun. There's a sick satisfaction of completing a tough level, and it did cause me to flip off my screen multiple times once I beat those levels. It also caused me to yell about poop monsters a lot too, which were these one enemies that tracked you through the level, just going right through walls to kill you. But it's this whole thing, trust me. But I beat the game, and it was alright. Indie Game the movie also had a big impact on me when I was in high school. In high school, I basically only played Call of Duty, but I loved documentaries. I watched Indie Game the movie on Netflix when you still had to have a disc to put in your console to stream things from Netflix. Remember that? And I saw a very funny and likable man talking about his Meat game where you die a lot by falling into saws and blades and knives and all sorts of things. I'd played a lot of games, and I knew someone made them, but to see it so literally in front of my face through the development and then the release and then the success of Super Meat Boy for Team Meat and for Edmund McMillen in particular, it just brought me a lot of joy. It made me see that games are great because of the talent and hard work from the people that make them. Every single game has someone working long hours, sometimes unpaid, and putting themselves through sweat and tears and all of their art into it. And that small glimpse behind the curtain really opened my eyes. Now, I still get that feeling from something like No Clip on YouTube or the War Stories series on Ars Technica as well. Games are just really cool, and Super Meat Boy kind of taught me that as a young age. It is the only art form that is so tangible in this way. It's amazing. And even though Super Meat Boy took me 6 years to actually beat, I still appreciate it for that. All the weirdness with the jumping and the frustration and the annoying this or the annoying that kind of falls to the wayside, and I really do appreciate this game for what it is, which is someone's art. And I'm really proud that it found the success that it did, that this weird game catapulted someone into such attention and so many people could appreciate it. I think that's really cool. Now, here's the turn. I don't think you should play Super Meat Boy. The amount of fun to frustration for me was way out of whack. I think the game mechanics are all a little goofy, and it just throws the whole thing off. And you have to play the same level 50 plus times sometimes, and that just sucks. I don't want anyone to feel the rage that I felt playing Super Meat Boy, especially in later levels. Both when I was a kid and now, I wouldn't wish that frustration on anyone. Now, some people would obviously be better than me at the game and not have that problem. Other people can probably manage their emotions better as well, and others would probably just stop playing rather than continue on this slow progression of anger like me. All of those are better options than how I dealt with it, but my advice is to just not even bother at all. That's why when I found out that there was a Super Meat Boy sequel, which I did not know anything about, Super Meat Boy Forever, I was just like, nah, that's okay. I had no interest in it. Also, the reviews are kind of meh in general for the game, so that makes the decision easier as well. Also, it's just like a totally different style of game. It's not just a platformer, so anyway, I'm not going to play Super Meat Boy forever. But there is this other game I tried right after Super Meat Boy. Disc Room is a top-down bullet hell avoidance game where certain goals are set for you to complete in order to continue to move through the spaceship that serves as the world. There's also a vague storyline in the game about chasing down a woman who woke up from cryo with a bomb to blow up everything, but it's all silent and told in comic strips, and it's all kind of lame. It's just a little something to whet the palate to give you some explanation as to why this spaceman is running through all these various rooms with saws and discs that will repeatedly kill you. There are different challenges in each room that allow you to progress. The most common is to just survive for a certain amount of time, although time behaves differently depending on the different sections of the ship that you're in. Sometimes time only moves if you collect certain items, sometimes you have to stay in the big circle in the middle of the room, sometimes it just clicks away no matter what. There are also puzzles to solve, special golden rooms with extra hard puzzles, and boss battles that require you to get these weird little amber orbs in order to defeat them. The game provides a solid challenge, but at the same time, it provides options. I know that the game difficulty debate is one where some people really get their undies in a twist. Easy mode or difficulty sliders or anything like that can cause people to lose their minds because they want the challenge and the feeling of success that they get from overcoming the challenging game. I would say that it probably is not very emotionally healthy to put so much stock into how good you are at video games, but regardless, Disc Room deals with this in a good way. Many of the rooms are simply optional. You do not have to unlock every single room in order to progress. If there are some challenges that are simply too difficult, you might not have to do them. The game also provides you with options for power-ups to use. Some of them make certain levels much easier to complete, but you don't have to use them if you want the extra challenge. The game also provides options for slowing the entire game down, limiting enemies, or changing some of the basic mechanics of the game. The developer left these open as an option for players who were finding the game difficult and wanted to progress, or who just wanted to practice the game in a different way. These left the door for enjoying the game open to many more people. It allows people with different gaming abilities, for whatever reason that might be, to enjoy the game. Accessibility is important, and that doesn't just mean people with physical disabilities. It also means people with varying skill levels too. And for those people that want the full challenge of playing Disc Room, they can still do that. There's even a hard mode with even more challenge that comes after you complete the base game, similar to the Dark World levels of Super Meat Boy. Disc Room was a lot of fun. I did not take on the extra challenge of completing all the hard mode levels, but I did make it a chunk of the way through them, and I did complete all the levels in the base mode. And I had a lot of fun. Some of the levels were hard, some were confusing, and some of the puzzles definitely require some type of guide, but I had fun the entire time. I never messed with the difficulty level of the game. I was able to just play it straight through. But I think knowing that I could, if I needed to, was a huge bonus. It gave me a safety blanket to fall back on if I found a level or a section that was too hard. Also, the short levels allow you to feel like you're still making progress, even as you find some levels that might cause you trouble. I sort of stumbled into playing these two games back to back. Literally one on a Thursday night and the next on a Friday morning. They both were in a similar realm of games, but my experience with them was just so different. And to me, the contrast was clear. One allowed for players to find the enjoyment in the challenge, and the other one forced you to beat it on its terms. I don't think that Super Meat Boy is a bad game, or the developers are bad for making the game the way that they did. I think it's a fun game in its own way, but I would much rather play Disc Room any day of the week than have to dive back into the anger of Super Meat Boy. But maybe I'm just bad at games. Bye.